mortgaged. Whatever home equity people had is already with the banks. So people don't have any good collateral left. So the government right now wants the banks to lend more money, but how can the banks do that? First of all, the banks have lost a lot of money, not just from bad loans, but also they've lost a lot in the stock market. They own assets, they buy stocks of other companies, and they've lost a lot of money there. But even people don't have much of a collateral. So bringing these interest rates down is actually hurting the economy today. And I'm not saying this just to disagree with others. Cutting interest rates at this point is not helping the economy. Why? See, banks are not able to lend money because they don't have good customers. People don't have, as I said earlier, good collateral left to borrow money. But when you bring the interest rates down, all those millions of retirees who live on interest income, their income goes down. And their spending goes down as a result. And this is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to do something that will cut consumer spending. So I've heard that tomorrow Mr. Bernanke is going to cut interest rates again. Maybe it's perhaps a symbolic act. It's not going to help at all. What will help is to follow policies that will raise wages in America. If you raise wages, yes, consumer spending would rise in a natural way. It would be a permanent rise in consumer spending. All these tax rebates, there was a tax rebate earlier this year. And again, what were they doing? They cut taxes, the budget deficit went up, government debt went up. That was the way they wanted to maintain supply-demand balance. First of all, it was temporary. Secondly, it was very small. So consumer demand went up for just 2 months, then it fell back again. So this is a crisis. This is a long-term crisis. It's not a short-term crisis which you can just blow away by just cutting interest rates or raising the budget deficit. Now, it will not evaporate so soon. It will not disappear so soon because it has been 30 years in the making. Ever since Reagan followed the policy of deregulation and the other policies which opposed a rise in the minimum wage. Because of all those policies, the wages have been stagnant. Also because of expanding free trade, all those things have kept wages stagnant. And so this problem has been in the making for the last 30 years. It's not going to disappear anytime soon. And the only solution, that's the amazing point, the only solution is to raise wages. People think, well, if you raise wages, small businesses would be hurting. Small businesses would fail. Greenspan used to say that if you raise the minimum wage, there would be a rise in unemployment. Sounds plausible, but let's look at facts. In 1969, the minimum wage in terms of today's prices was $10 per hour. In terms of today's prices, it was $10 per hour. Today it's what, $6.50, something like that per hour. What was the rate of unemployment in 1969? See, I selected that year for a certain reason. The rate of unemployment that year was 3.5%, the lowest in US history. So I selected that year because just when the minimum wage was the highest in US history, the unemployment rate was the lowest in US history. Raising the minimum wage does not hurt small business on the economy. It creates consumer demand so that businesses can sell their goods. Productivity only raises production, does not create demand. And a healthy economy requires that both supply and demand are high, not just supply. In fact, when supply is too high, there is overproduction and there are layoffs, and that's what's happening right now. We have very low wages. Is the economy great? No. Debt is high and people are being laid off. Why? Because businesses cannot sell their goods. Why can't they sell their goods? People have no buying power. Wages are stagnant. So, you have to look at both sides of the economy. Supply and demand are like two wings of an airplane. If one wing is like that and the other wing is low and the plane is flying, for a while the plane will keep flying, but eventually the plane would crash. And that's happening right now. We are crashing. The stock market is crashing. Unemployment is rising every month. And things are getting worse. There is a solution, but the solution is not in cutting interest rates or raising the budget deficit. The only way to come out of this problem, to come out of this quagmire, is to raise the real wage, is to raise consumer demand. But it will not be done because this is not the way economists think nowadays. They look only at the productivity side. It will not be done. That's why I'm certain that a revolution is on the way. It would take people's revolt against a very steep recession that's coming, against rising unemployment. Then new ideas would flourish. Then changes would be made. But before you can raise wages, there has to be a total change in economic and political thinking. And that means the end of the rule of money in society, because it's the rule of money in society that opposes a rise in the minimum wage, that opposes policies that would generate a rise in the people's living standard. See, the rise in the minimum wage not only would solve the problem, it would also raise everybody's living standard. It's a win-win proposition. It's a win-win solution. But it will not happen as long as money rules politics. And that's why I'm forecasting a revolution on the way. And once this revolution is there, everybody's living standard would rise, the economy would flourish, and there will be then a new golden age. That's why the title of my fourth book is very optimistic. The end result is great. It's only unfortunately, only these 2, maybe 3 or 4 years which are bad. And not because they have to be like that, it's because the status quo, the forces of the status quo would oppose the policies that can bring us out of the current debacle, the current malaise. Many people ask me how I was able to make these forecasts in the past and how I'm doing them even now. And have I made any errors? Yes, I have made errors. I have a website, ravibatra.com, what else? It's one word, ravibatra.com. And on that, I have listed about 40 different forecasts I've made over the past 30 years. And you will find that there are 3 or 4 that did go wrong. But I'm still confident of my method, about my method, because it's okay for me to have, it's okay with me if you have a 10% forecasting error. Nobody has, at least to my knowledge, nobody has a perfect record in forecasting. So